And so when you're creating something for someone else, whether it be a brand, an agency, a major film studio, a client that's giving you $2,000, you have to be ready to let go of your precious, and you have to work as someone that they can trust, and that's someone that's going to like be in the best interest of their product. So it's hard navigating. You'll have meetings where you're head to head with the client, but at the end of the day, you have to fight for your vision, but also be ready to let it go when the client says, "This is the way we're going. Do we need someone else?" As you say, "We're going to do this for you, and we're going to finish, and you're going to love it."
Well, welcome everybody back to to my podcast where I talk to you about fun and weird stuff. No, I'm just playing. Welcome everybody back to the Full Battery Media podcast. I have a really awesome guest with me today. Would you like to tell people who you are and a little bit about what you do?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Sean, for having me on today. My name is Josh Romero, based out of Chicago, and I co-run a film and video production company out here on the northwest side of Chicago, and we specialize in social impact projects, campaigns, documentaries for brands, nonprofits, corporations that want to showcase how they give back to the communities that they serve. So that's where we specialize.
That's awesome. It's awesome because, sometimes people make content without necessarily seeing the impact. People will be creating things, they put it out there, and you don't always know if the impact is good or bad. Like for some content creators, I'm using that term loosely, content creators. You see this last weekend, there was the Jake Paul fight. And I'm not hating on Jake Paul. I actually respect what he did. Dude got in the ring with a Olympic level boxer and only ended up with a broken jaw. I'd probably be in the ER worse off than that. So good for him. But there was a side thing with Andrei Arlovsky and Jack, I don't even know the kid's last name, Doherty or something, this little YouTuber kid. And everyone was talking about that after the event. And I was just like, it frustrated me because one of my friends said he wanted to be a net positive on the world. And I love that when people can come in and make an impact and put out there things that are making change, because I feel like media in general is a place and a way that we can make big change in this world and, what's going on around us.
Absolutely. And that's what we use it for. Media is also like, a loose, kind of a loose word. It means a lot. But what we specialize are stories for organizations that want to showcase, how they impact the communities that they serve, how they impact youth in education, environmental awareness. I mean, these are all projects that we're very passionate about, telling. And so we're very, very social impact based. Absolutely.
That's awesome. Now, you work as a director, a cinematographer, and an editor. How does wearing all three hats change the way you approach a project?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I've been really working on transitioning from director, producer, a filmer, editor. I prefer to direct and have a team, that I can lead to the finish line. It's very, very stressful to do everything all at
Yes,
once,
it
and
is.
that's how I got my start. I did it for years, and then when the pandemic hit in 2020, the COVID pandemic, I decided, and there was no work. I decided, I want to make something that can allow me to have bigger budgets and then hire teams, as opposed to work with whatever budget they got, do it all myself, make a bunch of mistakes, stress about it,
Yeah.
and then deliver the final product. So as a director, producer, it's great when we have capacity to have a big budget, to have one or two camera people, a dedicated sound person, and some production assistants, And it's really nice when I can have a producer on set where when I don't have to worry about the little things, crew meals and are we on time and stuff. I could just sit or stand, hone in and focus and create, directing an orchestra, you know? But when it's not like that, then I like to go back to your question. Um, it could be very stressful. What was your question exactly? Like, what is it like?
You actually answered it. It's like, what's
Yeah,
it like wearing all three hats? And like the point
yeah,
of you saying it's stressful, because one of the things that I notice, and this podcast, I love speaking to people who are in production, but people who are also trying to get their stuff going themselves. And one of the things that when people start out into content creation, oftentimes they start doing it themselves and they wear multiple hats, and you're like, well, hey, I want to start my own YouTube channel. Great. And in the beginning, they're filming their own stuff, they're editing it, they're posting it. And one
yeah,
of the things, I think the first things people realize is all those fun, fancy videos that you binge watch on YouTube or TikTok that look super simple are way more complicated than you think. And I think that one of the things that I have a client that came to me and he was like, I can do all of this myself. You can do everything yourself. You can learn everything yourself. But at the end of the day, there's a reason you go to a creative agency. You work with people that can help you. And I like what you're saying is, dude, I early in my career as well, run and gun, videographer, cinematographer, director, editor. And man, it got tiring. And like, as I'm able to work, as I've gotten in to be able to sit down, I directed this music video the other week, and I'm still moving around, checking shots and stuff. But when someone was really competent on set, it was just like, wow, that's awesome. You're really good at what you do,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Trusting your team is really important. When you
Huge.
don't have when you don't have a team, then yeah, you have to like do everything, and it becomes very stressful because the client is looking at you,
Mhm.
and they don't know what it takes. And here's another thing. Here's some piece of advice that could make the difference for somebody, whether they're starting out in the middle, of their career journey or full speed ahead doing their thing. At some point you got to learn, that you have to educate your clients. You have to educate people when they come to you and say, "Hey, I want this done." You have to break it down, and when they say, "Well, why I could just do it myself." You can. Do you have the experience? Do you have the training? If you don't, who knows what it's going to come out like, and it's going to take you forever to do it, and you're going to stress out about it. The whole point of hiring me and my team is to take that stress off your shoulders.
100%. Yeah,
So
that's
that's
it.
what I that's one selling point. Another selling point, of course, is the creativity. Okay, look at our portfolio. You like what we do. This is what you're going to get. And if you want to spend double, you're going to get even better. Whatever video you're looking at, but if this is what you want, this is what it costs, and this is what it's going to take. I've been so from 2009 to 2019. I did almost everything by myself. When I could, afford a sound person, of course I would. Not hiring a sound person has gotten me in trouble. So I had
Yeah.
to learn real fast, I mean, I had to make mistakes, and then you're coming home with footage that may be unusable because you can't hear it. So a lot of mistakes were made between 2009 and 2019. Then, when 2020 came around, I decided to start a portfolio, start talking to my networks and seeing who's a good fit for incoming projects or looking ahead. And then when projects would land, by mid 2020, things were kind of like opening up a little bit, and jobs started coming. I started coming in as Megasaur Media, not as Josh Romero. I came in as Megasaur Media. We are a team, and so that's how I sold it. Now, of course, coming out of 2020, people weren't ready to start dropping on video and stuff like that. So I still have to negotiate, but I also negotiated with my team saying, let's do this at a fraction of the cost. We're all going to make, we all can't make our rates, but we're all going to buy into this so that when the product is done, we can go to the next client and say, this is going to cost. this is going to cost what it is, and then I'm going to hire that same people to come on board for their full rates moving ahead, because we've already done, we've already sacrificed a little bit. We've already given like discounts, and the better we get, the more we have to charge. And we're also talking about, the economy up and down, up and down. So we also have to charge based on the market, so a lot of factors. But the point is, the 2020 was the year that I decided to start a business, and I decided that it was no longer going to be me doing
Yeah.
it myself. It
I love
wasn't
that.
worth. It wasn't worth taking a budget, breaking my back, and then having, like getting sick about it.
Yeah.
It's totally worth taking a budget, sharing it with the team, having a product so much better, and
Yeah.
then charging double, triple, and then when you're charging double and triple, you're increasing your teams.
Yep.
So yeah, it was a lot of work in 2020, but by 2022, Megasaur Media was looking pretty good with a solid portfolio.
That's awesome, man. Well,
Yeah.
and that leads to another question because you can create something, and then you can create something that works, and I mean, there's like, and one of the things too is like, that's one of the things I talk to clients about is that, it's easy to create something, but can you create something that actually, and I'm gonna crack up on this because I actually use this term all the time, and everyone's like cracking up. Everyone's joking about this term right now on LinkedIn and such. That people who say "move the needle" shows that it's AI generated. I'm like, dude, I use the term "move the needle" all the time. So not not AI generated right now, but you can create something that moves the needle and gets things happening. Because right now, I almost feel like there's a lot of spam going out. People are just putting out content, but there's still something to be said for real quality work. And so maybe let me phrase it this way. What's the biggest difference between just creating something and something that actually works for the audience?
Yeah. So creating something for yourself, or creating something that you're so passionate about is one thing. However, as my dad stated early in my career, el que paga manda, which basically means whoever pays calls the shots.
Yep.
So even if I'm creating something, and this has happened multiple times, we're building something, we're creating something, we're editing something, we're putting something together, and the client says, "Oh, can you go this way? Can you go that way? How about this?" We're kind of like, that's not gonna look as good as this. But they're like, "Well, no, but I want it this way." The fact that they're paying for it, they're contracting you to do what they say. Now, at best, not only as creators are we, but at best we're consultants. Because at the end
Yeah.
of the day, if we don't do what they say, why would they want to deal with us? Why do they want to
Yeah.
pay us for? So I know with major motion pictures that also can be the case. We're talking about freelance video and filmmakers, right?
Yeah.
But let's talk about like what it's really like in the industry. We run after school programming as well. We serve as a community based organization where we have students come in after school and they learn camera, lighting, sound, directing, marketing
That's
from
awesome.
from professionals, and then they get to take those skills in the real world, and like use it as their portfolio, part of their portfolio or resume, building. But one thing I always tell our students is, when you're even when you're up there and you're working for a major movie studio, that movie studio is telling you where the finish line is and what their
Yep.
expectations are. You're filling in the gaps. You're
Mm-hmm.
creating, you're leading a team, you get everything in the can, but then in the editing room, they want to have a say in it, and they're gonna have a say in it. A perfect example is Marvel and Sony, in
Yeah.
the way what they deal with Spider-Man. Sony has the final say, even though Marvel has all the creative, all the artists working on these projects are passionate about Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse and the Marvel universe, but the producers at the top want to make their money, and they want to preserve Spider-Man's image in the way that they see it, and so they have final say. Which is pretty much why Spider-Man 3, out of the original trilogy, the Sam Raimi versions, why Spider-Man 3 was so controversial. Where even Sam Raimi would talk about how it wasn't. He steered the ship, but it wasn't his vision. And that's just to name one very, very famous situation. It happens a lot. It happens a lot, and so I think I think a lot of directors go to independent film houses now, where they get to do whatever they want because as long as the director stays within budget, they could do whatever they want because they're Scorsese, because they're Tarantino, whoever, right? And so when you're creating something for someone else, whether it be a brand, an agency, a major film studio, a client that's giving you $2,000, you have to be ready to let go of your precious, and you have to work as someone that they can trust, and that's someone that's going to be in the best interest of their product.
Yeah.
So it's hard navigating. You'll have meetings where you're head to head with the client, but at the end of the day, you have to fight for your vision, but also be ready to let it go when the client says, "This is the way we're going. Do we
Yeah.
need someone else?" As you say, "We're going to do this for you, and we're going to finish, and you're going to love it."
Yeah.
It's
That's
different
it.
if it's different if you're making a movie as an independent filmmaker where you're fronting the costs and the team is behind you. That's different. You get to make your movie. If you
Yep.
want to edit it, great. If you want to hire an editor or work with the editor pro bono that is going to work with you and trust you, then you can make whatever it is that you want, however you want it. And even when you are working on an independent film and work with an editor that you trust, then you have to let go a little bit and you have to trust them because they're the specialists in that arena.
Yeah.
So I think filmmaking, it's not painting, it's not
Yeah.
photography. You get to call it. It's a collaborative process where you need to be ready to be that star director, but also a collaborator. Somebody that trusts everyone else that's there to pull the weight for you. You
Yeah.
know.
I
Yeah.
I've been on both sides, and I like it's not easy when someone you've been working away and you take this direction, and suddenly the client comes in and is like, "It's not what we're looking for. We're going to go this way," and you're like, "Okay." And but the thing I remember is I have to sit there the moment say, "Not a problem. We will get you to where you want to be, and that's totally fine." Because when you're doing client work, you got to be like that. And
Yeah.
but then being on the other side, having a vision when I've had vendors that I was having work on a project just yesterday. I had someone working on a my wife is a famous singer in Vietnam, and I got her but she sings really good country, which is really random and weird. And so I was like, well, let's do a country, some country, but like we're making it like more modern, more fun. But we gave the guy some creative control, like go ahead, modernize it, see what you can do. And then he's like, all right, country and dubstep. And we were like, this just doesn't work. It was very interesting. But when we listened to it, we're like, the dubstep was not matching. It was not clicking. And it was like, well, we appreciate you taking a chance, but we want it to be more like this. And he was like, he stopped for a second, smiled. He's like, I thought you guys might say that. So I had the second option lined up too. That was like a little bit more of what we were looking for. But, he did it in a really he's like, all right, man, that's cool. And let's spin it and let's pivot. And I think that's one of the greatest things I have learned in client work is the power of the pivot, because you're constantly pivoting. And and people just have a hard time pivoting in life. A lot of people just it's a tough skill to learn, but when you can do it, it gives you a lot of power because you just sit there and go, what can I control? I can't control the client, but I can control how our team's working on the next steps. But one of the
Yeah.
things that I find, it wears on me I create my own content as well, is sometimes being consistent is tough. How do you keep showing up and finishing projects even when you get to the middle of it and it's just like it's not, you can't see the finish line yet? How do you keep that consistency going?
Yeah, there's a lot of stress when you're in the middle of one or more projects and you can't see the end. I have to stop and wonder. I mean, I lose sleep if that's what it takes, and wonder, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? Now, if there's a proper budget, the easy answer is bring scale up, bring someone else in, or bring two other people. So now you're working on three projects all at once, right? But for that aside, when you're in the middle of something, I really don't know what the routine is. I do have a support system, whether it be my partner or my family or my friends, and I need to vent. I'll vent. I'll share. No one's got the answers, but people are there for me when I'm like falling back, kind of thing. Um, uh, when you're in the thick of it and you're like, how am I going to do this? I think you just have to focus. There's a lot of distractions naturally, and so I think what's important is, if you got to cancel, something that's really, that's not, detrimental to a relationship. You can't, you postpone that meeting, or that whatever it is, that friend date. You postpone it. Whatever you got to do, you have to reorganize yourself so that you hit your mark. You can't miss a deadline. So when you're in the middle of it, things are piling down. If the answer isn't hire someone else to help me, then the other answer is, how am I going to, reorganize my time, make the most out of my time, so that I'm meeting, my deadline, a date, and every day it's counting down. It's counting down. So I think being ready to, um, to rework your schedule. And another thing is, the people that you surround yourself with need to be understanding. I've been in relationships that they don't understand, like with this industry, this creative work. I've been in relationships where they just don't like know, like, oh, like, the life of a freelancer or entrepreneur. When you have a circle that's fully understanding, that care about you, they'll take a step back and say, okay, well, I'll see you. Let's shoot for next week instead, because I know you've got this major deadline. I've had friends, my partner, tell me, I understand. So, um, always looking to your loved ones, to your support. I guess, let me rephrase that. Always looking to your support systems. When you don't know what to do and you need to just feel vulnerable or let it go, just call on them, and then have them just listen. And then it's like, okay, then you have to make a plan. What am I going to do? Am I going to stay up late nights for a week, or am I going to hire someone so that we're all done by 9 p.m. Every night because we're going OT here? Or reorganizing your world a little bit so that you meet that deadline. So no easy answers, but I think knowing what's important is always best. I guess another way to put it is, shifting priorities. I think
Mhm.
is just the quick way to put that. Be
I
ready to
think,
shift priorities. Yeah.
yeah, and it's that pivoting as well. It's like you got to figure out what's the highest priority. When I was
Hmm.
whenever I'm looking at a video or something I have to get done, I'm old school. I make a checklist. Whether that be a digital checklist or this, like, what are the steps we got to get done to finish this? And that allows me to start seeing what are the steps to completion, because it can get overwhelming when you're deep in the middle of something and a middle of a project. And I mean, it doesn't have to be making videos. It could be baking a cake. When I have
Hmm.
cracked open 5 eggs and I've got a pot of flour in front of me and I'm just looking at it going, dude, what am I doing right now? My
Yeah.
daughter, right? I'm like, where am I at? What
Yeah.
is this? Why do I have a bowl of flour and water and eggs in front of me? And the same thing, it's like, you guess if you can stick to your steps. My daughter last night, we did our Christmas presents a little early because my wife has to travel for work on Christmas. And, my daughter was begging me for knitting stuff. She saw a knitting video. She loves arts and crafts. She's on all the paintings around my room are by her. And so I obliged, and then I forgot about the next obvious step that was going to happen of her going, "Daddy, teach me to do this." And I'm like, dude, I don't know how to knit. I remember watching my grandma do it in the 80s, when I was a little tiny kid and just busting stuff out. And I'm dating myself there. But, one of the things that was the wild, though, is I was sitting there going, I don't know how to do this. I really don't know how to do this. And we're sitting there, and she's like figured out how to do a slip knot. And now she's looking at this thing of yarn and like this pile of stuff and a little crochet needle. And she's like, what do I do? And I'm like, I don't know. And it was really overwhelming. And so I was like, well, we're seeking out a tutor who can take us step by step through a process, because again, if you have steps that you can replicate, even the most challenging of tasks can become manageable, and like, that's the thing, it's like in content, we all talk about the fun stuff. Everyone sees the fun part, right? You go watch a Mr. Beast video. Oh, that's entertaining. But you don't see the deadlines. You don't see the budgets. You don't see the real world constraints. You don't see people trying to struggle. All right, we're going to drop. I remember once I talked to some people on their team, and they said, hey, one of the challenges is they have, so like, we need to drop an airplane from a crane, and we're going to drop it on the ground. What do you do to make sure that gets done? It's just like, wow, you got, they're like, well, you have permits, you've got these things, you've got to find a crane operator who's crazy enough to pick up a plane and just drop it. You've got all these things that you have to do, and it's the real world constraints, and how do you find that you go about balancing all those things that you have to juggle from project to project?
I kind of gave you like a long-winded version of how I deal with things, but then you came back and you said, okay, you got to look at all the parts. And so with that being said, I'd like to finalize my answer with a piece of advice that I've gotten over time, and that's bite-sized steps. Break everything down to sizable steps, chewable steps. So it's like, okay, I've got this big, plane drop project. What do you do? Okay, first you need the permit, so you need to just make sure that you're talking to the team that's going to make that happen. You got to make sure your insurance is like, down pat for that as well. So you talk to the insurance team. Okay, great. So you start like checklists, like exactly like you said, bite-sized steps. Okay, great. And then what's another thing? Okay, well then you have the filmmakers you need to hire to make sure you capture how many angles you got. So, okay, so then you spend that time, getting your team together, the 2 cameras and sound, and then maybe a GoPro, in case a thing, just in case, right? And then bite size, so that if you've got a week to turn this around, that every single day you're doing something, and then when things start falling apart by Wednesday, you can go back to that team that's associated with that. But okay, how can we fix this? And now you're like, putting out that fire while your director of photography is already taking care of like, the look and the location kind of thing, while you're over here working on, logistics and stuff. So bite-sized steps. When you look at the whole thing, it's like you look down at the bowl and the eggs. It's like, what am I doing? But it's like, okay, why don't you organize everything? You got your eggs here, you got your bowl here. What's the first step? And then that way it becomes easily digestible, as opposed to create stress and blows up in your face. Maybe doesn't get done at all. Yeah, a lot of people give up. And so I think that's great advice wherever I got it from. Sizable steps.
Yeah. Oh, there was this. I always laugh at this example. Someone said, like, how do you eat an elephant? Bite by bite. And I was just like, first of all, I'm not going to be eating an elephant. But I mean, if I was going to, you don't take on some large task unless you break it down. And that was a kind of a dad joke right there. But, what can you do? One of the things, too, though, is that I think that, when we're talking about this, breaking things down is so helpful, because what I see people making a lot of mistakes early on in content creation. And whether it be like audio, man, for years didn't have an audio person, and man, it just bit me in the butt. And I get to post, I was like, dude, this is great. We filmed this awesome. And then all of a sudden you hear this you're just like, oh God, what did we do? What is that static? And I've had these moments where like it was completely unusable and I had to go to someone and say, hey, we have to reshoot. And it was just painful, 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 painful to have that. But when you break things down step by step, it makes it a lot more manageable. It's like you can actually say, oh, hey, we only messed up step 2. Let's go back and redo step 2 because you were able to break it down and you're, having quality check at each step, which is great. But that was one that I see. And sound for content creators is hands down the area where I see people making the most mistakes. I have clients that send me post-productions, that's stuff to work on. And I had this really great team yesterday that sent me this really beautiful video, really well shot, really well done. And the audio is like, it was just static and stuff. And I have a real whiz of an audio engineer who's a musician as well. And we were sitting there working through it and we got it better, but like, it's still not great. And, you're just like, here you go, guys. And I'm not hating on anyone because, dude, I've done it so many times. It's so common. But there are common mistakes out there that lots of people make. What are some mistakes that you see people make when they start out?
Yeah, when they start out, the biggest mistake is trying to do everything themselves.
Yeah.
Not really. One thing another thing I see, people aren't business ready. They're
Yeah.
creatives. They're creatives and going out into the world. Um, and I mean, the schools that I went to did not teach like business. For creatives of any kind. They just gave you some tools. You sharpened the tools. You did some tests. You got better at your craft. But not having those negotiating skills, client facing skills,
Yeah.
yeah, you need to be ready to work with people you don't know and people from all over the world, and you need to be that calm and cool, and respectful person. I've been on shoots where you know camera guys were acting kind of silly and like not really professional like always. It's just kind of like these are young guys, and they're really good at their stuff, but they haven't gone through a kind of like a professional training kind
Yeah.
of thing. um but starting off, people really need to know, like, I guess their market as well. What is it like? Whatever they're doing, is everyone else doing it?
Yeah.
Or is there a niche that you can kind of like, specialize in?
I
And
love
that's
that.
what's going to set you apart, because there's tons of people. I tell people this all the time. Tons of people do video and media work.
Yes.
Yeah, but not everybody focuses on impact stories, social
I
impact,
love that.
social impact projects, campaigns, stories that mean a lot to people. Other than that, if we weren't doing that, we'd just be another media company, And so we really pride ourselves on being niche, social impact, documentary campaigns, kind of thing, that where we get people to share what's inside. Not just, oh, it's a great product. I agree, buy in. It's like, no, no, no. What made the difference for you? So back to your question, right? Like, what are the things that people like in this industry kind of start off not knowing and then dive in? So we mentioned trying to do everything themselves, right? Not
Yeah.
being like have professional training, communication, effective communication skills, effective leadership skills. That's what's missing
Yeah.
sometimes. We've got all this technology, and it's so easy to make your movies. It's so easy to be a director, an artist, whatever you want to call yourself. But if you don't have those, those skills that are important for business and relationships, friendships, people are not going to come back. If you don't have those skills and effective communication. You don't have to be a leader. You could be an awesome collaborator. But you're a leader in your own right in terms of your emotions and how you come off. In front of people, in front of clients. In front of people that want to work with you. There's people that are not going to want to work with you if you don't communicate effectively or produce good work.
I love that. I love that because it's like communication is an undertaught skill for creatives, you know? And one of the other things that you pointed out there was some of the business concepts. My wife and I were talking last night, and she's a musician and she had worked with some different people last year. And she worked with some very high, like well-known, high-end production team, and they cost a lot of money. And then at the end of the day, we were crunching numbers last night on how much return she got for this whole package she did. And she's like, I got one show that requested that song. I had one live show that said, can you sing this song? But we also like had a thing that me and my team did. We found a great stage that had beautiful like LED lights, LED wraparound stage, and I filmed it with their local crew, but also, came in and I had my guys that did some gimbal work, and I was like running a gimbal. And we were out the door for $1,000 for the entire project, songs, video, editing, everything, because it was in my house with my team and people I was already paying. And those songs that we did, each one of the songs got her like 8 shows. And I was like, right there, I said, now, which of those was the better investment? And like, I went to business school during COVID. I was like stuck at home, nothing to do. So I was like, I'm going to do my MBA online because, man, I just want to learn more. And there was one concept in the entire program that actually was worth it. And that was return on investment, the idea of ROI. And I wish more people learned about ROI because ROI is such a great core concept.
Yeah.
Fundamental looking at, is something worth it? Is that thing that you're buying? I just upgraded to a new camera because, and it wasn't the most flashy. It wasn't the most bells and whistles. It was something that was exactly what I needed. That's the
Well,
combo I needed, because I was like, I'm shooting more. I need a new gimbal. I need a camera that's got super fast autofocus, that's video centric. So I picked up an FX30 from Sony. I didn't need the more expensive stuff. And I was just like, it's a quality cinema camera. It's a lighter camera so that when I'm traveling internationally, because dude, one of my biggest pain points is when I'm traveling to the US or to Qatar or to Europe and I'm filming something and I'm lugging around this massive pack. It's painful. Like, it is literally painful to be carrying all that gear. And so, but what I finally did, I realized for the numbers of what this new camera, for years I used my old cameras, and it just was a certain point where I was renting and I was like, all right, this new tool is going to actually have the value in return. Because dude, there's like with gear especially, creators are like, dude, yes, I want this new XYZ thing, right? But the reality is sometimes that doesn't have a return. Sometimes adding that extra person on your crew is the perfect thing because it gives that person is so valuable, like a great sound person. The amount of money that you spend for what you're going to get back on the other end is totally worth it. But sometimes there's a device or something that you put like, I'm going to drop big money on this, and you drop that big money, and it is just like, wow, that was a horrible investment right there. And so, yeah, I
well,
love return on investment. And if I was to tell any young creator something, look at it that, right now we've got this trend of actually like lower quality video is like not bad quality, but like something that is great enough. I'm seeing with a lot of people like that they're making their YouTube videos. Like for every single video, you do not need to be shooting 8K. You don't need a cinema camera. Maybe you need a really good, mirrorless camera that gives you great quality stuff that shoots what you need for, and I'm talking individual content creators, not production houses, but for like content creators, what's good enough for what you're doing? And can you then create more quality content instead of, just losing your consistency because you get caught up in. I had that happen once. I bought a really expensive camera and my team didn't know how to use it. And we didn't know
Uh,
how to edit it. And we had this camera that sat on the shelf for years. And every time we started using it, my team's like, "Oh, I don't know how to process this." And it was just like, that was a horrible return on investment. But these two for years, I was using some micro four thirds Panasonic cameras, GH5 and such, that were not flashy, not expensive, but man, they were my workhorses, and they did a great job for what we were doing.
Right, right, right. Another thing I feel like coming out of the gates, people, um, you know, um, haven't developed, skills of being resourcefulness. They'll kind of like, all right, I'm your person, and then when things get hairy, they kind of like they don't know what to do, And so I think for any industry, being resourceful is one thing that needs to be developed in somebody because resourcefulness is so important, especially when you're when you're out filming. Nature, life will get in the way, and so you need to just in terms of pivoting, you need to be resourceful. You need to know who you can call on, or how you can find a creative solution to whatever the situation is. you know
So true. So
yeah,
true.
and then yeah, yeah.
And
I
I think sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
And then I mean, I was just gonna say, I think another thing is people need really strong portfolios. I think
Yeah.
nowadays with social media just being, everything and everywhere and flashy and stuff, people think that's enough, but you need a website. That's really gonna bring in projects that are more sustainable than just a couple thousand in and out, in and out. It's already gone. We need to work with budgets so that our business is growing, so that our team is growing, and being resourceful is definitely really important. What's that? The second to last thing, and then the final thing was having a sharp portfolio, so that it's an easy like, oh, okay. When you have a portfolio, when you have an LLC, that's another thing. It took me 10 years to do. Aside from your portfolio, you've got an LLC incorporating. People take you more seriously than if you don't have those things. People are like, okay, this person is protecting themselves. They know how to do business. Let's do business with them, kind of thing.
I love that. I love it. Well, I want to ask you one last question. If someone really wants to get into content, what are some of the first things that you would tell them to focus on?
I would say, I think my answer for something like this is to find a mentor. Find
Uh,
somebody that's like doing things that you want to be doing. That way you can learn directly from them. That way they'll have the patience for you. You don't want to show up on set and ask a bunch of questions. They're like, what is this person doing? Like, if anything, you get on set, you do everything you say and say, hey, I'd love to help you in the next project you got going on. And then that's where you find, you got to find somebody, so you don't have to go to school for this. If you do, you know, go to school and then find your internship. Your internship's going to give
mhm.
you that real world experience. They can mentor you, whether they're going to be your mentors or not. They can an internship. That's what it's built for, to mentor people. And then after my internship, I got my mentor. I found my
That's
mentor.
awesome.
And then a mentor. A very a good book can save you 10 years of mistakes. They'll tell
Yeah.
you
Right.
exactly what they did, and they'll tell
Right.
you exactly what mistakes they made, and they'll
Yeah.
tell you exactly what not to do. They'll tell you exactly how to do it.
Yeah.
And so a solid book, a solid mentor can give you that.
I love what you're saying right there, man. I was self-taught and I was coming up in LA and it was like I got in right at the beginning of YouTube's stuff, I was early 2010s just doing it while like it sounds like we got a like similar time frame start, and like you're out there and people are doing stuff, but not everyone knew what they were doing. But I got really lucky that I got in with I was living in LA and for one summer, I got to work on a big movie. I was trying to do the whole LA thing. And I got there and I didn't know anything about anything. But I got in and I was like, people are, oh, you want to do acting and production and all that fun stuff? Well, just go and become an extra. And I was like, I don't even know what that is, man. So I got into a movie as an extra, which was not what I wanted to be doing. And I sat there for 12 days in a back lot in Los Angeles going, what is happening here? But I made friends with everyone on the production team. And I got to this point where there was one day, it was the last day on set, and my friend grabbed me. He's like, hey, Sean, how tall are you? What do you know, come over here. And I stood there. He's like, you're a stand-in now. Just stand here. You're going to be here as the actor while they're lighting this shot. I was like, okay. And the cool thing is that I made friends with everyone. They brought me back for the next 4 months of production. I was there almost every single day, and I got to watch. It was the movie Angels and Demons by Ron Howard. And I'm not a huge fan of the movie after the fact, but being there, being on that set for 4 months, watching these people work and soaking up everything they were doing, asking questions. And they were like, one of the things you don't realize when you're coming up is that there are people out there that are very high level in their career that are more than happy to help you, more than happy to steer you in the right direction, more than happy to share their knowledge with the next generation. But you have to ask, and you have to get into those situations where you can ask and be feeling confident to ask, and to be humble enough to ask, because there are a lot of people who's just like, oh, I've had a little bit of success, I don't need anybody. And I've met teams like that. And then when they run into a real challenge, they collapse under pressure because they've never been through it before. And certainly they'll learn on the fly, they'll figure it out. But if they had the humility to say, you know what, I don't know everything. I'm 20 years deep now in my filmmaking career, and I will be the first to tell you there is a ton of stuff I have no clue about. The other day I bought my new camera, and one of my team members was like telling me, she's like, hey, she's brand new on the team, and she's like, next time you guys film, can I please come and be part of the production crew? And I was like, okay. And I was like, how long have you been working with cameras? And this was a real danger for me because I looked at her and she's like, not long. But yet I'm good. And then in my head, I was like, well, this young person, I've been doing this. I've been literally making videos for longer than she's been alive. But then I was like, but you know what? Maybe there's a hunger. Maybe there's some knowledge that I do not have. Maybe she's got this new camera technique that everyone's doing and I have no idea how to use. And then I get there and I go, what? Who knew? And so, even deeper in my career, I try to have that humility because, dude, you don't know everything. You do not. So ask, be a sponge and be willing to learn.
Yeah. Great people will bring you on board if you are, kind, humble, know. I think that's a great piece of advice, Sean, for people. There's a lot of competitors, people with competitive mindsets out there. I've learned to, the COVID pandemic, I keep coming back to that, but that was the beginning of my entrepreneur journey.
Nice.
I learned around that time to have a collaborative mindset versus a competitive mindset.
Yes.
And I want to work with other collaborators. I want to work with other humble people. I want to work with other people that are passionate and just as curious and willing to grow. A lot of times I feel like people don't grow; they stay stagnant in their specialties, and that's what they want to be. However, I want to be working with people that want to learn more and grow together, and share these new technologies and welcome younger people that were raised with these technologies. Where we're still kind of learning like how to navigate these things. And so I feel like I think the fact that it sounds like you said you're self-taught, so you didn't go to film school. You're a filmmaker now. And you started, as an extra. So that to me proves what I'm saying. You need to be resourceful. There's plenty of people that would have gotten that opportunity that you had and would have just kept on coming back as an extra, kept it coming back. And then maybe, started getting to get comfortable and then maybe a little more confidence and then started asking questions. But the first feature film you ended up your first major feature film, You were friendly. You were obviously, did everything you needed to do, right, on time, followed directions. That's the easy stuff. The hard
Yeah.
stuff is sticking with it and
Yeah.
showing up and being like, I'm not nobody, I'm an extra, and I'm going to make friends with people. And then all of a sudden, you start getting more opportunities because you're kind, you're humble, you're passionate, you're hungry, all the good stuff.
Yeah.
And you're collaborative person, and that's what you need to succeed in this industry for sure. The gates are there, the gates are already put up, so who are you going to be so that when that opportunity is there, the doors unlock because you don't know everything, but you're kind, you're passionate, you're hungry, you're collaborative. you
Yep.
know it's what you need.
Yeah. Let me ask you one last question. If you were to
Sure.
go back in time and give yourself some advice, what advice would you give yourself?
I would give all of this advice that we're talking about today, Sean. I would take everything and I would share everything I could. We talked about a lot of little things or a lot of big things and everything in between. There was I didn't really have much of any of this stuff that we're talking about. What I had was I had a dream and passion. However, perhaps this is conversation for another time. But where I came from and where I got my start, and even before that, my upbringing, I wasn't really given like all this world of knowledge. I wasn't taken seriously as a kid, kind of thing. And so living in sometimes suburbia is kind of mundane and, nobody really, sees you for you. Everyone's just kind of like in a herd. It's
Hmm.
like, all right, treat each other. The golden rule. Okay, fine. But I never learned the things between growing up and college. The things that I never learned about were having self confidence, negotiating, finding a mentor, um, um, you know, uh, going back to self confidence. I think that was the first thing I needed to break through. That's the first thing I needed. I went through some extensive training to break through that stuff. Again, this is what I mean when I say maybe we could talk about this another time. But I didn't have these. I didn't have self confidence. I didn't. I never got the leadership. I was always. I went to school to be a working bee.
Mm,
I was never like, I never went anywhere that's like, okay, well, if you want to stand out, if you want to break out, if you want growth, these are the kind of skills you need to pick up. I didn't get that stuff in school. In my family, there were working class people, immigrants, and they wanted a better life for us. They didn't have time to show us the arts and self expression and leadership and entrepreneurship. They didn't have time for that stuff. They just wanted to, put food on the table, have a roof over our heads, and allow us to have a comfortable lifestyle, which I'm grateful for. It's another thing, you got to have gratitude. I think that's what's missing today: gratitude. We're on the social media world and everything's spinning so fast, and everybody wants and needs. And suicide rates are unfortunately always an all-time high all the time. And so I feel like if we're grateful for the things that we do have, we will make room for the things we want.
yeah.
And so those are the things that I never got as a kid, even through therapy. I was just there. I went to school to do my schooling. I went to therapy to kind of shift some things. I went to college to hone in on some things. However, in terms of the real things that are going to allow you to create a life that you love, you need to have gratitude in your heart. You need to have a passion, and you need to not be afraid to express yourself. Or if you're afraid, there's where the advice comes in. Be afraid, but do it anyway. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
yeah.
If
So
where
everything, everything that we discussed besides, the importance of family, that's the only thing I had. Everything else was new to me, and I had to learn it somewhere else and make mistakes. So now when we coach and mentor students, we tell them about all the things that we've gone through so that they can already have 10 years of knowledge in their pocket when they're applying for college, or just not everyone has to go to college, but when they're applying to the workforce, So it's a lot, but these are the things that I would tell myself as a young person in terms of having gratitude, being confident in yourself, and learning, finding a mentor, and learning how to break through those limitations that only you have set upon yourself.
Yeah. Well, where can people find more about you and the work you do?
Thank you so much, Sean. Um, I'm, at megasaurmedia.com. On there, there are plenty of socials that you can find me and my work on. I think megasaurmedia.com. You could find me. There's a contact page there that my team and I always look at, and then we direct accordingly, kind of thing. And then, of course, the socials, that's all on the website.